What is up? We got Metal Gets Me High, episode 64. It's just me today. I don't have my co-host, but I'm very excited. We have an awesome guest. This is a person that I see peripherally in the scene where I go to a lot of shows too in the Bay Area. Someone I look up to who has a kick-ass band that nobody sounds like. Somebody who has a really awesome podcast in the Forum of Passion, speaking to a lot of different people, metal, hardcore, punk, lots of information, um, and puts on kick-ass shows here in the Bay Area and in Richmond, Virginia. For episode 64, we have Ace Stallings from Mutually Assured Destruction, Sentinel, a band that I really like, and of course, Forum of Passion. What's up, Ace?
How we doing, man? A lovely introduction.
Thank you.
Yeah, chilling, hanging out. Ready to talk about all things metal. I'm in.
Nice, nice. And I use metal because I I'm a metal kid who's gotten into hardcore, whereas I think right now you're seeing a lot of the opposite of
Yeah,
hardcore kids who like metal because
yeah.
like for me,
Interesting. So
yeah.
you've gone the other way.
So the way I got into it is so first I've talked about this. There's no scene in our area really. The only band that's kind of like from our area that like you might know is The Streets.
Oh,
Um,
I mean, yeah. I'm friends with Fred and JT, but they don't
okay.
even they don't live there.
No,
It's like
Cam lives near, he's in Modesto.
yeah, exactly. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about a little before, but it's kind of geography of where you are in congruence to, in kind of line up with the Bay Area. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that area, you're in the middle of, you're in between places.
Yeah.
So I get it for sure.
But also kind of quick shout out to Fresno. I know there's bands like Bulldog and Burn
Mm-hmm.
Unit who are starting to create some buzz in the scene. I'm actually wearing a Bulldog shirt now
There you
because
go.
Bulldog's a kick-ass band. So but to get back to it, I for most of my adult life, I commuted to the Bay Area, working like 9 to 8 days from here to either Dublin or Fremont.
Okay.
So I didn't have a lot of time because of work to like go to shows. So when I did go to shows, it's things like uh, Lamb of God,
Sure.
Slipknot,
Sure.
stuff like that, like
Yeah.
the Mayhem festivals.
You're you're
Those were
you're
my
nice,
first shows.
like triple A, like bigger metal stuff. I totally get it.
Yeah, and then I could tell you like what got me to hardcore to just dip my toes was 2014 Nails dropped You'll Never Be One of Us.
Ah,
And that
a good a good bridge band for metal to HC, because you can kind of tap in on Todd, and you can sort of work your way back through like a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, and it's almost grindy
Oh yeah,
in some sense. So like I like that. And then I didn't hit my first like hardcore show in the Bay Area, like more smaller show until I went to the August Hall and I saw Code Orange, Disembodied, Twitching Tongues, Vein FM. That
okay.
was my first real
What year
hardcore
was
show.
that?
I want to say it was either 2017 or 2018, somewhere in there, because Code
Okay,
Orange was touring on forever.
it kind of makes sense. I that tour, if it hit the East Coast, would have been the lineup would have been different. Like the leg would have been
Okay.
different. It definitely didn't. If it did, because I was seeing Code Orange and Twitching Tongues like a fair amount around that time period, but like it wouldn't have had Disembodied and Vane. I mean, seen Vane a bunch and everything, but I don't know. I don't remember this one because I would have been at this one had it hit Virginia.
Yeah, for sure. And it cracks me up too, like where my introduction to Twitching Tongues was Disharmony because they're touring on Disharmony.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
it's been funny to hear like listening to Hardlore how like that. that's not like the most loved Twitching Tongues album when that was like my introduction to it. And I'm like, dude, this kicks ass. So
So this is the question. So you immediately rocked with Disharmony when you listen to being a person that was, more metal oriented. When you listen to "In Love There Is No Law," did you like it more or less?
I like certain aspects of it more.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but certain aspects not as much where like like
Interesting.
I like this what I like about Disharmony is I like that's really their soft as fuck harder than you album where it's like there are just these crazy riffs on that album that are definitely more like death metal leaning but
Yeah,
then you
I
have
mean, it's
Colin.
a more metal leaning record in for sure. You know.
Yeah, so like even seeing Twitching Tongues this past winter when they came around to the Gilman, seeing them
Oh
do
yeah.
this harmony
Mm-hmm.
since that last time I saw them live, I was like, dude, this is like holy shit. This
Yeah.
is like a kind of a full circle moment.
They had a good set at that. It was nice.
That is a set that I go back to a lot as like, man, like I don't think I could have been more present and in the moment. Like,
Yeah.
and it was cool in the sense that like I'm seeing these dudes in different bands like in the pit, or like
Uh,
at one point I look over and Waleed from Snuffed on
oh,
Sight
Snuff. Yeah.
is singing Preacher Man next to me. So it's like
Uh-huh.
it was a show where I felt like I was like pinching myself in a weird way.
It was that one was nice because it came together. Um, it was like I think it was maybe like multiple tours at once, like convened. Is how
Yeah.
we're setting it up that way. Because there was the Harm's Way tour happening separately, and then Twitching Tongues
Yes.
wanted a date that day, you know, also, and so it just ended up being, a real big banger. That was cool, and it's a very Gilman's a very easy room to be present in, because kind of
Agreed.
nowhere, no matter where you're standing, like you're seeing the stage.
Yes.
So it's like as long as you're in there, you're at the show. It's not like you're like upstairs or something. You're in the front hall or something like that. So, but that's cool. That was indeed a good one.
Yeah. I listen to your podcast a lot, and I'm curious, like, how did you get into heavy music, and like, what was it about it that made you like, okay, this is kind of something I want to like to be a big part of my life.
Um, how I got into heavy music was, you know, I think back to like as a kid, I liked action movies,
Okay.
and in '90s and '80s action movies, um, I was still watching, like, albeit I was like one in the '80s. I was still watching '80s action movies when I was a little kid. Carried over. Um, Hard rock was like generally what the soundtrack was
Okay.
to those movies. Like I remember, I cite like I was really into Mortal Kombat, the game and the movie, and the movie soundtrack I got as like one of the first CDs I ever got, and that had on it like stuff that I wouldn't even like think about until like a decade plus later. But like KMFDM, I think Typo Negative is on there,
Okay.
and I want to say Napalm Death.
Damn. Okay.
But like I'm listening to, it's like it was like stuff like that, and I'm listening to it, and I don't even know what I'm listening to. I'm just like, oh, I associate this Mortal Kombat. I like that. But like I liked action movies, so I would hear that music, but not really think anything of it. Time later, I think I distinctly remember hearing "Inner Sandman" by Metallica somewhere,
Okay.
and not really knowing what it was, but it's thinking it sounded cool. And then I heard it on the radio at some point and was like, oh, like, um, I was like a frustrated young man, and the kind of aggression and like the heaviness and the hardness of like that type of music, I was like, oh, this kind of sounds like how I feel.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd started diving in based on that. Um, and that was how I got into it. Where I think I decided it was gonna be like what I ended up dedicating my adult life to, Ooh, that's a really. I'm trying to think of if there was like a turning point. I feel like it would have been. I mean, I get obsessive about anything I like. So like once I started liking this stuff, I never really changed it up. But
Okay.
I think it would have been. Um, I don't know. Just to call it a point, to call it there was a pivot point. I don't think there was. I think it was for me. I think it was gradual. Through a series
Okay.
of because it wasn't like I went to my first show and loved it. In fact, I didn't love it. I went to like a hardcore show when I was 15, and I thought I thought the band sucked, which is funny because time later I would like the bands I saw and everything.
Yeah.
But I just kind of wasn't ready for it, and I would kind of periodically go to stuff, the subsequent years after that until eventually it became my like weekly, it became my life.
Yeah.
So long answer to your question, I'd say it's hearing Metallica and like kind of like hard rock and action movies when I was a kid kind of got me that direction. And then it was a gradual through a series of events, finding my place in this world, this larger
Okay.
world. So to speak.
That I relate to what you said too, of like being like an angry young man, where like, it's like I've got stuff going on inside of me, and I'm kind of mad, and this makes me feel a little bit better. So
Yeah,
I
it was just like, oh, like
relate
I
a
would
lot.
hear just the distorted guitars and like the pseudo yelling. I was like, like this feels correct to me.
Yeah, I relate a lot to that. So I'm glad you said that. Um, at what point in your path, like, did you decide I don't want to just be a fan of this. I want to be a participant and like start my own, create my own music.
Pretty early on.
Okay.
I kind of have a thing with me in general where I have a hard time. Um, I have a hard time being a fan of things without the ability to participate in whatever thing. Like, I play sports and stuff, but like I kind of have a hard time watching sports.
Okay.
It's that same sentiment. Like I would rather be doing. So kind of how I got into things was my dad wanted me to learn an instrument when I was younger, and but I was also kind of lazy. So I was like, well, bass only has four strings, and that seems easier than guitar. So I'll do that. But then I started really enjoying it, and everything, and like I took a few lessons and stuff, and started teaching myself like Metallica songs and like other things I liked. I think I remember like teaching myself like how to play like Doors songs and like things like that. But I somewhere in there, a friend of mine asked me to if I wanted to be in a band, and he was into punk music, and I didn't like punk music at the time. I was into metal,
Okay.
which I still am, but I didn't like anything punk related because I thought it was simple and I thought it was basic. And but I wanted to be in a band. So when I'm like 14, I joined this band with my friend, and through a series of that, I would eventually I would put the bass down and have another guy play bass, and I would just start doing vocals. But it started pretty early. Like there wasn't a lot of show going for me prior to already playing in a band. Like I think
Okay.
I was playing punk music and things of that nature before I even went to my first hardcore show.
Okay.
Actually, that's 100% true because I joined that band when I was 14, and I went to my first show when I was like 15. So it started out as participation uh, before like I guess being like an observer almost.
Yeah. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Like, and then as far as like form of passion, what made you start that, and like what was your kind of your goal with that project?
Former passion started because I thought I was done being in bands.
Oh.
So I was in a band called Breakaway from 2010 to very early 2019. I think we probably would have just broken up in 2018. Um, but we had like a Alone in a Crowd show scheduled, and wanted to do that before we broke up. Um, so I was in that band for a while, and when that stopped, I was like, okay, I want to do something different. I don't want to be in a band anymore. And so not even influenced by anything hardcore or metal or punk related, but more influenced by like film related things. There was like a film podcast I liked and like, and then also like this thing called Inside the Actor's Studio, which is where this guy James Lipton, who would interview actors and people in the film industry and talk to them about, like how they got into, like acting or what have you. And I was like, oh, it would be cool if there was something like that for hardcore and like for punk and for metal. So that was kind of the idea. But like the same month that I started Forum was the same month that I started MAD. So because I think I was out of a band for like 2-3 months, and I was like, I want to be in a band. So that didn't last very long. So I just kind of ended up starting those two things at the same time.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, have you scored your like quote dream uh podcast, or are you still waiting on that one?
That's a good question, and that's kind of only something that like people like yourself like know about,
Yeah.
that we do stuff like this. Um, oddly enough, it's like the dream people um are like they may not be the dream people for other people. Like
Yeah.
um, you know, like some people. For here is an example. I met someone the other day that was like, I'm a fan of the podcast. And I was like, oh, great. And I always ask people this, and it's never the same answer. I go, what is what are some of your favorite episodes? And what got you in? And it's never the same. Um, and this person got brought in because of Parker Cannon from Story So
Okay.
Far and No Pressure. Which to me, it was like, I met him, I knew him, and I asked him if he wanted to do it, and he said, cool. I didn't know he didn't do interviews. So
Okay.
other people would contact me and be like, how did you get him to do that? And I'd be like, what do you mean? They'd be like, well, he doesn't do interviews. That might be somebody else's ultimate episode. That's a cool episode for sure. And it's like behind the curtain. That's easily the most popular one. But for me, it was like, getting DFJ was huge, and I got to do that in person. And it's because I grew up listening to bands like Righteous Jams and Mental, and
Okay.
like grew up like moshing to like Rival Mob, and would end up and No Tolerance. And it's just like his resume was so crazy, and so much stuff that he did was so influential to me. And even now, the stuff he does, it's like Innumerable Forms is great. Summerlands is one of my favorite bands, like in
Agreed.
the current pantheon. So that was a big deal. Jason Tarpey from Iron Age Eternal Champion, that was a big deal to me, and especially because that was a big deal because I've always been I'm a huge fan of his music. And I think I posted something about Eternal Champion, and he contacted me and was like, "I'm a fan of the podcast," and I was like, "Oh, it's crazy."
Okay.
Um, so that's the big stuff for me, but it's like maybe for somebody else it was like Randy Blythe, like having like Tony from like Rainbow Gun's a very big band, having
Yeah.
somebody on like from that or whatever. But no, for me it's like I don't know. I'd like to talk to Stefan from Kickback because I think it would be crazy. Now, I probably need like someone there to translate French, but
Fair.
it's I don't think I have like there's not like a person in my mind that I'm like, oh, I gotta get this person or whatever. It's more like it sort of changes month to month, week to week a little bit, where I'm like, oh, it'd be interesting to talk to this person or that person because I generally set them up like a little later than I should. Um,
Okay.
so sometimes plan ahead quite a lot, but other times it's like, all right, like let's see, let's see who's available because something could happen. Somebody could have played a particularly a really cool show that gets bounced around on the internet or something like that. that week, and it's like, oh, maybe I should get in touch with them and see if they want to talk about things. So I try to pivot, but I keep a list. I keep a list of potential people to contact and everything. So,
That's
um,
cool.
but just like listening to music, it's like you're listening to something, you listen to a record, and then you're like, oh, it makes you think of a different record. You're like, oh, I'm gonna jump to that record. That's kind of how I approach the podcast a little bit, where I'll be
Hey,
like, oh,
I,
it's
I
like
like that.
it's like I'm listening to this or thinking about this guy or this girl or whatever, like this band, and I'm like, oh, but what about this one? And then I'll kind of jump that way.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's another thing that you kind of touched on that like I I really respect about you is that like you're not just a hardcore dude. Like I've heard you reference bands like Stormkeep,
Oh yeah,
black
dude, so
metal.
sick.
Like you're someone I see that you're regularly listening to new stuff
Mhm.
that isn't like what people would think is your lane, but like you're checking it out, and I find that that's something that I try to do a lot where like
For sure.
unfortunately like black metal I haven't really touched on too much black metal this year just because like it's almost draining I feel like at times where it's like man do I really want to be on the stair climber for 30 40 minutes and like listen to something that at times can be hard to listen to.
Oh no, I mean, well, and it's like that's kind of a part of the genre. I mean, dude, like I hate to say it because it's like not it's the less cool answer, but a lot of the black metal oriented stuff I end up like liking is like far more melodic than the like harsher like war metal tip that's like very popular currently. And I like that stuff too, but it's just you know some of the more for lack of a better term like musical black metal that's like definitely seen as like lamer I think in a lot of people's eyes I just enjoy listening to more. So it's I do try to check everything out. I these days I feel a little more I not connecting is not the right word. I get a little bit more excited about metal releases and punk releases. Um, but the thing is, punk, hardcore, metal are genres that are ever kind of like expanding, contracting, changing, going different directions. Like what have you. Like this sound could be in this year and the year after that, and then it completely changes. What have you. Right now with hardcore, there's like a lot of bands that I enjoy, and then there's a style that is not really my style. That's kind of like very prevalent right now. That's like leans like heavier,
Yeah,
and so it's like I'm down, but it's not really my bread and butter.
that's
So
fair.
it's like I try to kind of like rotate a bunch of different stuff on a regular basis. Um, and it's like and be this my band kind of plays in like both spheres of like metal shows and hardcore shows. Like I like to stay up and abreast of kind of like what's happening all over the place.
I think your band is perfect for that too, where like seeing you guys live at Banging in the Rock, it was like this is very rock and roll, and I
Mhm.
feel like that maybe it's gonna come around soon, but like rock and roll type stuff isn't like really what's in what's in right now is you're right, like the more knuckle dragging,
Yeah, and
like
that's kind of for everything. It's like with hardcore, it's like you like the stuff that kind of like leans beat down or like heavy or like aggressive like that. That's big, especially you live close to the Bay Area. That's
yeah,
what comes out of here, and then for like metal, it's kind of the same. Like,
slams,
like
maybe
Sengosuva,
Killing Flesh,
stuff,
yeah,
stuff like that. That's popular. And it's like, dude, I love stuff that has like a groove and like a rock to it of any genre. Like death and roll stuff is cool to me. Like black and roll, like black metal, like rock and roll, like kind of uh like craft or like undergang or like stuff like that. Like that's
yeah.
cool to me. I like stuff like that. And I've just always kind of liked I grew up listening to a lot of rock because my dad would be like playing it all the time. And you know, even when I was younger, it's like listen hardcore. It's like I came up in a time period where there was like kind of this like rock sort of like seasoning on
Hmm.
bands. You know, it's like Righteous Jams kind of had like a rock thing going on, like War Hungry, early War Hungry, very like rock and like bluesy, you know,
Yeah.
but pre Arthur. And that's kind of the stuff I was like, you know, like listening to. And so it's like I care. There's another band kind of at the same time period that was nowhere close to as big as the ones mentioned, but there's this band called War Pigs that was like a
Okay.
Pennsylvania band that kind of had like that feel. I love finding anything that kind of had that feel. But yeah, it's not because here's the thing: you look at a band like Twitching Tongues, they pull from similar stuff to my band.
Yeah.
You know, like they pull from Only Living Witness, and so do we. And they, you know, they have like some like Life of Agony and stuff like that, for sure. But they, I think, they kind of craft it from a like, you know, they're super breakdown oriented. I won't say super breakdown oriented. They're breakdown oriented, and like MAD has parts like that for sure. But it's like a lot of the stuff that we listen to, especially currently, is like um you know, stuff like the New Orleans sound, Down,
Yeah.
you know, Acid
Very
Bath,
apparent.
uh, like you know, like Pantera kind of like finds its way in there and stuff. You know, we always reference like Corrosion of Conformity, and like a lot of that stuff is stuff that like maybe some hardcore kids like, but you know, maybe not. So we're just kind of doing what we enjoy doing.
I like that because you know we just touched on it where like a lot of things sound similar, but that's what caught me with your band is like, oh shit, like this is very different. I like how like I almost heard like some Alice in Chains in it, which like,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
they're kind of a heavy band, but like they're subtly heavy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. They were. I feel like they're like the like metalheads grunge band. You know,
Definitely.
like if it, like they kind of could have come out, they could have come out post grunge. They could have come out like not as the post grunge genre, but like
Yeah.
they could have come out in like late '90s, maybe even early 2000s, and still I think have been approached the same way that they like. It's I feel like they just kind of got shoved into the grunge movement because they were from that area happening at the same time, but they don't necessarily sound like they sound like Nirvana. They don't necessarily sound like Pearl Jam. You know what have you. But I feel like they were sort of distinct in their sound. And like I didn't really grow up listening to very much Alice in Chains, but one of our guitar players, you know, is a big Alice in Chains guy. So that
Okay.
found its way, you know, like into our music. Um. So, but yeah, I mean, like you know, since I've listened to them more in recent years, you know, because of them.
Okay. That makes sense. Something I'm curious about is like you are part of two different scenes in literally like opposite parts of the country. How is Richmond and the Bay Area, how are they similar, the scenes, and then how are they different?
Well, you know, my involvement in Richmond these days is like, you know, I'm from there. I lived there for 32 years, and I will now kind of like help friends and like other promoters. What's cool is there's like a lot of promoters there right now. I'll help them facilitate shows by like somebody contacts me. I'm like, oh, you should talk to this guy about setting something up, or talk to these kids. Like I'll send people to the Killing Pace people or my friend Chris, or even this record store owner Bobby who runs Final Conflict and does like a bunch of cool stuff. But the and then like if I'm in town, I'll like you know like run a gig because I was booking theirs from the age 21 and onward.
Okay.
So over 10 years. I mean, technically, I was booking shows when I was in high school too. They were just smaller and just very high school.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd say I've been booking shows for 20 years, but um, you know, I feel like I really started to do like ones that people were excited about right about when I was 21 or so.
Okay.
So the difference. Okay, so the difference between the Bay and Richmond is, so the Bay is a larger populous area, so the shows are larger. But the strange thing is they're not, but so much larger, which is
Okay.
very interesting because in Richmond is a city of like 250,000 people, whereas there's like 8 million people in San Francisco alone. No, actually, that's a lie. Not 8 million. There's actually San Francisco is surprisingly small. It's only 800,000. Still, almost 4 times the size of Richmond. And that's just San Francisco. Most of the showgoers in the Bay Area live in like East Bay or like San Jose, honestly. Or like they're like you, they migrate in from someplace else, maybe like Sac, Fresno, like and all the areas in between. Um, that being said, it's like Richmond will still have like good like shows with a lot of people. Um, like hundreds and everything. Like tonight there, I was talking to the guys at MAD. There's like 4 shows going on. There's like Snubbs on Site is opening that Thy Art is Murder tour, so that's happening. There's a Chisel Haywire conservative military image show going on. There's a death metal show going on somewhere. And I swear I saw something about something else. So it's like that's all happening in a smaller like city, and all the shows seem to be doing pretty solid based off of like things I've seen online. So why is that? Alternative music is like ingrained in everyday culture in Richmond. Okay. So it's like more people than the average city like know what's up with like metal or hardcore or punk. And you like run into people a lot there because it's because of the size of the place. You like see people in bands all the time, or like you like go someplace they work when they're like not touring or things like that. Everything's like pretty interconnected. So it's like and it has like just like the Bay Area, it has a very storied history of all the genres. So it's like the worlds of like Lamb of God and like stuff like 90s metal stuff like Alabama Thunder Pussy, and then into the 2000s and 2010s like stuff like Windhand and like Inner Arma, and then then you've got Municipal Waste. It's like there's a lot that's like churned out of there, and then there's also a very storied hardcore history. Like 90s, like you had like Count Me Out and Strike Anywhere and Four Walls Falling, and then like it turned into the 2000s with like Down to Nothing, Brace War, Naysayer, Murder Weapon. 2010s brought in bands like I was in this band Breakaway. There was like like Candy. I think Candy originated there during that time period. This band Tough Luck, and then eventually stuff like Downfall, Division of Mind. All like kind of the Triple B stuff. So it's like it just kind of continues there. But right now, I would say Richmond was previously, I feel like, known for straightforward HC and like metal too, but like predominantly, I feel like straightforward HC for a while. Now it's like I feel like what's happening in metal there and what's happening in punk there, big time in punk, is kind of taking the forefront. Like on the punk side of things, like you have this band Public Acid that's doing very well. Stuff like Destruct.
Yeah.
And like some like other like more like local stuff like this band Ivy Creep, and this is like this new record came out by this or demo came out by this band Coyote, which is like people from say Richmond Vampire and like a few other things. It's like that's kind of that world, like anytime like a D beat band comes to town, it's like people are showing out for sure. Then on the like metal side, you've got like this band is like kind of like MAD in the fact that it sort of like sits on both sides of the line a little bit. But you have a band like Killing Pace that does kind of the more grindy sound, but they like the hardcore and like some metal oriented shows. and then stuff like Enforced, like doing like thrash and kind of carrying that flag, and like things like Blazing Tomb and 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 that stuff. And so it's like and this band Restrictor Plate just came out. It's like a slam
Yeah.
band. That so it's
Slamtona
like
500.
yeah, that. So it's like and that is popping off there right now for sure. So it's like that's kind of the stuff it's being created in Richmond, which is different than the Bay.
Yeah.
Like in the Bay right now, you've got, kind of like your RBS stuff. You've got, Tsunami, Big Boy, Extinguish,
Yep.
like stuff that's like heavier leaning, like borderline big beatdown, like hardcore.
Yeah.
That is, and like that does not exist in Richmond. That's like not a thing at all. And I'm kind of when I moved to California, that was like initially it took a little getting used to, because it's like, hey, I love hardcore. This kind of stuff is not necessarily my bag. Like for
Yeah.
California, I'm like more into things like Dead Heat or like Doomsday. Like I like thrashy things, so it's like things that
Yeah.
kind of go that way. But all the people in aforementioned bands are great people. But it's also the band's also super eclectic as well. You've got like cool bands like Spiritual Cramp. On the punk side of stuff, you got like Fentanyl. Like I think they're sick.
Yeah.
And like Spy.
Spy is awesome.
Spy rocks.
I love his side project that he released, Torture Hammer.
Torture
That's
Hammer.
been one of
Mm-hmm.
the most played releases for me this year. I'm a
Damn,
big fan
respect.
of
That's
that.
cool. Peter will be stoked on that. But yeah, so it's like the Bay's got its own kind of diverse thing, and it pops too, because it's like, I go to punk gigs here, it's cool. I go to metal gigs here, it's cool. I go to hardcore gigs here, and I mean, I say this being somebody that was a lifelong Richmonder until I moved to California, unbiased, just having experienced it and kind of come in to help, like, after it had already been established. Best hardcore scene in America is in the Bay Area right now, period. So it's like, it's there are the similarities and kind of like enthusiasm, and things like that, and sort of like the eclectic nature of both scenes, but they're like two different meals that are pulling from completely different ingredients. The only similarity is that they're both food. Otherwise, they're pretty different. Like one's a hamburger, one's pizza. Like there's technically bread in each, but like they're different. They're kind of like different things. And hamburger and pizza are good, so I like both.
I'm with you on that. That's something that like I love to see right now is like different scenes in different areas, how they're like the different sounds that come from them. Because you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the Bay Area, like you're right. It is like Scowl is so different
Oh
from
sure.
Tsunami, so different from
Mm-hmm.
Drain. So like it's cool because there is a little bit of everything, but like I noticed everyone definitely reps each other like really hard, and that's been cool to see.
That is a bit of a difference, I would say, between the two places, where it's like, there's crossover in Richmond for sure, but you definitely see stuff a little bit more in silos than you do here. Here, everybody kind of plays with everybody.
Yeah,
Whereas in Richmond, it's like you're not gonna see Destruct and Restrictor Plate on the same show. No way. Like
yeah,
that's not gonna happen. So whereas like here, it wouldn't be that outside. It wouldn't be that crazy if Spy and Snuffed on Sight played a show together. Like that could
exactly.
happen in the Bay, kind of no problem. So that's sort of a difference. There's a little bit more blending on this side than on that side.
That totally makes sense. Like kind of since you've been around and seen the ebbs and flow of heavy music, um, a lot of people say that right now we're like kind of experiencing a peak of like these bands, and I for some reason I kind of think that we're not quite at the peak yet. We're getting there. Um, but like where do you kind of see things going in like 5 years?
That is a really really good question. I think I somewhat agree with you on maybe we haven't got to the top of the mountain yet, because I think getting to the top of the mountain uh, indicates that there's going to be a going down the other side of the mountain.
Yeah,
And I don't see that happening yet.
I agree.
But the only reason I feel we haven't reached the peak is because I don't see it falling off anytime soon.
Exactly.
So, like I said in my head, I'm like, how much bigger can things get? And because so much that happens right now is so unprecedented, I don't really know the answer.
That's fair.
It's like the marker keeps getting kind of moved almost like every year.
Yeah.
So, next 5 years. Within the next 5 years, so how I approach things is that within hardcore and metal and punk, I don't know as well how like cycles work
Yeah.
with punk. Like I feel like at least to my ear, like a lot of the punk that I've liked has stayed sonically pretty much the same for like a while. Obviously deviations, like exist for sure, but like I haven't heard like punk sounds that I feel like are like in reaction to the sound that happened the 5 years prior or whatever. So with every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So what I think is going to happen is there's going to have to be some type of reaction to what's happening currently. My guess is the immediate guess I have is that there's going to be a wave, and I believe it's already started, of like people that are like that are interested in only playing with like regular hardcore, like fast pitch, over the plate, not punk, not heavy hardcore, just like HC, like kind of like what that being like No Way Out sounds like, or like I think of like another good like another Collateral, like like things of that nature, like Burning Lord, stuff that is like not necessarily like demo core, but just wants to be hardcore and nothing else. They don't want to be metallic hardcore. They don't want to be punk. They just want to be hardcore. It's like that's going to be there's going to be a wave of that because of how much of that there hasn't been for the last 5 years. That's one of my predictions.
Okay.
My another prediction is there is with metal, I think people are going to kind of get over the caveman thing, and we're going to see like, I mean, you can kind of see it in like a band that I thoroughly enjoy. You see like a band like Tomb Mold, where their previous material was like somewhat straightforward, and this new record, like some people didn't really rock with it because they were like, "Oh, this is like really musical." You have like kind of like clean, not clean singing, but like clean parts, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna see some people being like, "Hey, man, I'm kind of over being beat in the head, like with the riffs, and I kind of just want to do something that's like a little more progressive." I think we're gonna see a little bit of that. Punk, I feel like it's gonna be people are gonna start referencing something that, like, I feel like D Beat's been big, like within the at least my radar, and like people referencing like Japanese bands and Swedish bands and stuff like that. I feel like there's going to be some type of people referencing not that anymore, but I don't know exactly what it's going to be. Maybe people get really back into like doing like Wave 1 USHC, US, hardcore punk. So maybe like that. Maybe there'll be some like, I mean, I didn't predict the Oi Renaissance, so and that's happening right now, and I never would have thought that would happen. So maybe people get into like UK82, and you start seeing people with like charged mohawks at shows and stuff like that. I mean, kids are kind of into crazy fashion, so like maybe they just see some video of the Exploited back in the day, and they're like, I just want to be this. But I do think there's going to be equal and opposite reactions to everything that's happening right now. I also think there's going to be people that are seeing like hardcore getting too big, and getting like feeling like a little too, like for lack of a better term, like corporate or sponsored or whatever. And there's
Yeah.
going to be people that want to be like, I want to do whatever the exact opposite of that is. I want to keep it back underground. I want, and like, like kind of like get away from the eyes of the outsiders, you
Yeah.
know.
That makes sense.
So these are sort of my predictions loosely.
I actually, to touch on what you said about metal, I like really agree with you about the caveman thing where Two Mold is a good uh example where like it's almost like the band Death where like if
Mm-hmm.
you listen to Death, they're it's like they're very riffy at the
Oh yeah,
beginning, and then as they progress, they become very musical. So I could see like right now it's all about like how heavy can you be, and
exactly.
then you're gonna start seeing, a little more musical, which like I think that'll be cool because I you don't hear a lot of guitar solos on a lot of
No,
death metal these days.
like it's crazy. You know, I feel like what really somebody can do to really bridge the gap is if somebody comes out and they're like, we're just gonna do Carcass, and so it's got like enough like riff, like kind of like danceable hard riff, but it's also like hella musical. Like
Yeah,
someone comes in and just is like, we're doing straight up that. I think you kind of bridge the gap for sort of both sides of things. Um, so, but no, yeah, I think the Death kind of discography is a good kind of barometer of where potentially things freaking like might go. Because I remember it was like like the caveman stuff was for sure in response to like people being like kind of like nose up in the air, like elitist kind of death metal, like people of the time period before. And you have these people who are like, hey man, I'm not here to like listen to you talk to me about scales. Like, I want to hear like hard riffs, bro. And it's completely
yeah,
understandable. It's like that you were just like having some like, kind of like wine and cheese crowd death metal person sort of like be like, oh, but like I don't like when things are too simple. Then you had these like people come in like wearing like pit vipers and stuff, and they're like, I don't give a shit about that. So I think we're gonna kind of go back to people being like, okay, yeah, we get it, you can be heavy, and now it's time to like not do that.
yeah.
We'll see. Like I said earlier, I didn't predict the oil renaissance, so who knows?
I'm gonna be honest where like I didn't really know much about Oi until the new Chisel record came out and I saw
Understandably
people
so,
raving about it. So I
because
checked it out and I'm like, this is freaking cool.
that it was a lane that was niche for a long time. That's why when it started coming back, I was like, really? That is just not because I listened to the XM radio show when I was a kid, like I was like 16, called Oysters. It happened on Sundays on like the
Oh,
punk channel, and you could like record the radio show. So I would listen to um, a lot of like Oi songs on that, and got into that genre kind of like then for a bit when I was a kid, but didn't really like stick with it. And there would be like kind of outliers here and there. Like I like the French stuff. I like Reeks. I like Syndrome 81. I like Condor and things that guy Maxine does. And and then there started being like there was some British stuff in that time period, Crown Court and everything. But then it started like being like more prominent. Like you had like kind of like Chubby and the Gang pop up doing kind of the pub rock thing. And then the Chisel kind of happened at the same time. And then you started seeing it in like America with like Violent Way and like CMI kind of counts with it. CMI is like an Oi influenced hardcore band. So and they
okay.
use kind of skinhead imagery, not kind of. They use skinhead imagery. So I think
Yeah.
people almost erroneously consider them like an Oi band, but it's like actually this is just hardcore that just happens to be pulling from the same, at least in my opinion, this is just hardcore that happens to be pulling from the same kind of well as Oi stuff, but it's not really like Oi to me. Um, but yeah, so it's like, but it just wasn't really. something I mean like when I was growing up, I associated Oi with people that really liked their job and patriotism. And I didn't really see people being really into working or being patriotic, like being a thing. So that's why I
Okay.
didn't predict it. But what do I know?
That's interesting to hear. I mean, it's just really fun music. That's like kind of
For sure.
I,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing I feel like I'm noticing in heavy music is seems like everyone's just kind of having fun right now. Where
They
like
are. They are. It's
you
really
have
interesting, and it's actually nice because
it
there's a
is
time
like
period where like fun was not really, I feel like, the priority. It was
yeah
kind of like for hardcore, it was like like how hard can I dance, which is still a thing too for sure. But it was like how hard can I dance, or like like whatever scene politics, or like with metal, it was like how much like what deep cut record can I like reference that other people don't know, like and I'm playing with a broad stroke,
yeah
like kind of thing here, but like now it's like big time about the fun, and
agreed
about like just like having a good time, and there seems to be like a lot less ego in everything, for better or for worse right now. But and that it is nice. It is nice to kind of like just, oh, like some kids going to a show and they're like just gonna go have fun. They're not really like worried about like getting their ass kicked or fucking, I don't know, like someone like G checking them and being like, list 5 songs of whatever, which has its merits for sure, but their peers certainly aren't doing that to one another. It's just kind of
yeah
like you go to a show now and it's like, um, oh, do you like End It? Like, yeah, me too. And that's kind of it. It's not like, oh, like what should like I'm trying to think of something uh like that would I feel like used to get like referenced like real heavy. I don't know, it being like, oh, like I can't believe you like the like blacklisted record over like the breakdown demos. Like you're crazy. Like that's like such a wrong fucking answer. It's like you don't have as many combos like that, I feel like now.
I agree with you on that. Where it's like you know it's okay to have differences. There's less of the elitist attitude because I remember when I first really started getting into heavy music, I would always go on like Metal Injection and Metal Sucks and comment on stuff and like getting berated because
Oh, dude, forums and online stuff used to just be brutal. Like I would be on like local message boards in Richmond being like just saying anything. People would be like, shut up, fuck you, like Bridge 9 board saying anything. Like it was like I feel like on that website you would like post your band's demo and be like, check out my band's demo. Immediately people would be like, yeah, it sucks. Like, and that's just like not that's like not really the energy right now, which is a good thing.
and I that happened to me where I got caught up in the negativity at some point like oh this sucks but like I really try to operate on like there's no such thing as bad. There's just not, it's just not for me because
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that comes out that like doesn't really, I see the hype on it and I'm like I'll give you an example of like I remember recently Spirit Box. There's
Okay.
they're huge
They're
and
huge.
I'm reading things like genre defining music and I don't think it's bad by any stretch, but I was kind of like, this is just like, and the problem with it is the first song I heard was that Holy Roller song, which is like
Uh-huh.
a really hard ass beater of a song.
Yeah.
So that was what I went to them for. I'm like, that's what my expectation was, is okay,
Sure.
this
Sure.
is what they sound like. So then as I go and listen to it, I'm like, like it's good and I'm glad a lot of people are liking it. I'm glad this band is getting big, but it just doesn't, you know, scratch that itch for me.
Doesn't land for you. Yeah, it's very like with Spirit Box, it's like it's interesting for people that were around. Spirit Box is only like 2 steps away from like Evanescence.
Yeah.
like honest,
Well,
like honest.
yeah,
Um, so it's kind of thing where it's like, you know, and Evanescence was like like very polished radio rock.
yeah,
So it's
definitely.
like if you like that, then Spirit Box is probably fine, and that's not really your bag, and I feel like they lean more into, and I'm a complete layman. I've heard like maybe a couple songs, but I know the deal. I feel like they
Yeah,
lean more into that now. It's like if you're into like heavier stuff, they're probably not as for you. So it's kind of thing where it's like, and I know like the front person in that band, she can sing and the people can
yeah,
play. So it's
they
like
can.
objectively, I know that these people are good at what they're doing, but it's just not necessarily for me. So
Yeah,
it's like I get it, and I think that's just kind of the way to be. It's like there's some stuff out there that's bad enough where it's like it's like okay, like it's not played well and it sounds bad. This is bad. That's okay. But there's some stuff out there where it's like, yeah, I mean, they know what they're doing, but what they're doing just isn't my lane, and like that's
yeah.
like totally fine.
And I've learned to appreciate it more, like picking up a guitar where like I suck at guitar, but like, that makes me appreciate it that much more where I'm like, damn, this person's like really riffing, coming up with these crazy either time signatures or like melodies. So like
Being a
I
player
get it.
does make you appreciate things, in a different manner for sure.
Yeah. I'll kind of start winding it down a little bit. Which thanks again for joining me. I want to touch on what are some more recent releases, whether it's metal, punk, hardcore, or even if it's not heavy music that you've been really spinning a lot lately.
Okay, good question. I keep a note on my phone of
Okay.
new stuff that I'm enjoying. Um, so stuff that I've heard recently that I've liked. I'm kind of go all over the map. This is for the year so far.
Yeah.
So we're 3 months in. I'll give you this. There's a tape. It's on YouTube. This New York band Lethal. This guy Quinn sings for it. They have a tape called Hardcore Music Time, which is just a 3-song punk tape. It's got this really sick song called Airflow on it. I'm into that. It's cool. It's just hardcore punk, ripping. Sounds awesome. The Upon Stone record, Dead Mother Moon,
Yeah. Great
melodic
record.
metal, pulling from like things like At the Gates, In Flames, stuff of that nature. Very cool. I'm enjoying that. Um, there's only 2 songs out from this, but it's people from, I want to say, the band I Am and Eternal Champion and maybe some others. This band called Myth Carver.
Okay, I haven't
Like,
checked that out. I have
oh,
to.
it's great. It's like traditional heavy metal, borderlining on power metal, but it's not really power. It's not that. It's not that over the top.
Okay.
But they have 2 songs out right now. I imagine they're having some type of record coming out. I think it's awesome. There's a band from Richmond called Sacricide, which is ex Nosebleed, ex Tempter, kind of doing like the lady that sings for it, Valentina, often in at least this band and the last one kind of pulls from like Sacrilege, like kind of UK punk that kind of like has like a metal lean. It's got a
Okay.
little bit of riffing going on with it. Sacricide is cool. This band that Derek from Tumult actually put me onto, Chapel of Disease.
Yes,
Um,
that's an awesome album.
oh, dude. Okay, finally another because like it's like my friends that like metal don't really, other than him, don't really listen to stuff like this. How good is that record?
It's awesome,
It's
especially
so
because
awesome.
it's heavy, but it's very musical, and there's like those clean passages,
Hmm.
and the vocals are just they're different.
Oh,
It's
they're different. It's like it's kind of all like it's like the vocals are kind of all over the place. That record is so cool. I can just throw that on. It's like a metal record you can listen to if you're like not necessarily looking for something hard.
yeah,
But like it's got really good, just like there's good solos on there and everything. It's just I'm talking about it right now, and I just like want to like immediately put it on after this. Like such a cool record. Um, this band Despise from Scotland. I
Yes,
haven't
that's an awesome
revisited
album.
this but so much, but that new release that they did with like the kind of 2000s-y looking cover or whatever, there's some pit anthems on there, no doubt.
Agreed.
Kind of pulls from like the IDS, EGH, Terror Ave kind of style, but also like there's a lot of King Nine on there too.
Yeah.
Um, let's see what else. I initially thought I was really into the Savage Oath record, but and as much as I enjoy everything that Brendan Radigan does, it crosses the line into being like too power metal for me.
Okay.
It's people
I'm
from
with you.
Summerlands and Visigoth,
Yeah,
and
I
maybe a
can't stand power
few
metal.
others. And I'm like down with stuff like Rhapsody and like kind of for like the novelty can like listen to some Dragon Force songs legitimately, but
Yeah.
like this one just like it's just a little. I don't know. Maybe I need to revisit it because I like the singles and then I like some of the previous material. But if you like Brendan Radigan's kind of operatic vocal, here's another example of him going in. And then a couple more. Didn't like the second single as much, but the pallbearer single from whatever upcoming record they've got, the song "Where the Light Fades" or something of that nature, is like the best song I've heard all year. Like I could just run
It's
that one,
freaking good.
and it's like not really like doom like their regular stuff. That song in particular is like more of like a prog rock song in a way. Like if they just did a whole record that sounded like that, it'd be like record of the year for me. But then the next one that came out just kind of sounded like regular pallbearer. So we'll see how the record goes. Um, a friend of mine released a release that is like under the radar, kind of small, but he makes great bands. It's Connor Jones from bands such as like Illusion, Akulu. He's been Reaction. He was in this band Countdown. He's currently in. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Like I'm forgetting something big for him. But anyway, he's a riffer. He makes good stuff. He has a new project called Star 67 that kind of sounds um, like late 90s, early 2000s, like rock. Like you'll hear it and then you'll
Okay.
hear the reference points. Like kind of has some like gorillas aspects to it. Like uh,
Dang. Okay.
Smashing Pumpkins kind of like it's cool. It's a hardcore guy making not hardcore music at all. Star 67, check it out. And then two more. There's this record by this I don't know, we'll call it a dungeon synth record, but it's not really dungeon synth. By Power Strike, and that's Power Strike with a Y instead of an I in strike. And it's like how I describe the record is um it is dungeon synth. Okay, no, it was the soundtrack for a movie about a barbarian that gets sent to the future
Okay.
is
That's
how I would
very
describe
interesting.
it. And you kind of read on the Bandcamp because I think it's only on Bandcamp. You kind of read on the Bandcamp about what the guy had in mind for it, and it's like, oh, that what I just described kind of makes total sense. And then
Okay.
last but not least, this band Creekshog from don't get mad at me if I'm wrong about this, people listening, but I want to say Japan, even though their
Okay.
name is like German-ish. Um, it's just like DB, like punk hardcore. They came out with a new record. I want to say it is called Revenge and Fear. Hold up, I don't want to lie to you. It's like very simple cover. It's just the name of the record on it. Love and Revenge by Craig Shaw. Just some
Okay.
driving, good fist in the air, punk music. That's cool. But those are my records for the year. The unreleased Extinguished record coming out is pretty good too. So we'll kind of see. We'll see what kind of the back half of the year holds for us.
So that's what I was going to get into. Is do you have any albums that you're really looking forward to? Like, because for myself, I can tell you, I cannot wait for the new Nails. I can't wait for
Mhm.
the new Undeath, and I cannot wait for the new 200 Stab Wounds.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about that. New 200 stab wounds, I think, is going to be a real like let's see what they're made of. type situation.
Agreed.
Because it's like what they've created so far is it's sick. Like they're of the new wave of American death metal, we'll call it the NWO ADM. Uh, they I think have the most exciting sound,
Agreed.
the most energetic sound. Um, so we'll see. Undeath is very consistent. Shout out to the boys,
Yeah,
Alex and Kyle and all of them.
that's my
Um,
guitar teacher right there.
oh, for real? Kyle is?
Yeah, I
Dude, that's awesome. I did not know that. Shout out. That's great.
yeah, man. Like before that, I've just been kind of self-teaching, and
Mhm.
what he's helped me with, it like I'm so thankful, and
Oh, beautiful, man.
it's so much cooler like to learn from someone who like you look up to, where it's like, oh, it's like I gotta pinch myself sometimes. I was playing something not long ago. It's like, I'm sorry I messed up, bro. I was just really nervous.
That's cool, man. That's killer. Yo, next time you see him, please tell him I say hello.
Will do.
But yeah, I think they're consistent. They continue to stay consistent. Um, we'll see what they got on the new one. You know,
Agreed.
I hope they mix it up a little, but I don't even know what I mean by that. Like I kind of want just like another element of something in there. We'll find out. Those guys are all smart and they know how to move. So
Agreed.
I think they'll do something fun with that. And then you said Undeath, you said the Nails record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, long time coming. I think it should do well. I think it should do nicely.
I, I want to
Um,
know who's in the band too. Like, what's up with that? Because last I had heard, it was just Todd. I remember there being a thing where it was like Taylor is out, Saber's
Taylor, to my
out.
knowledge, is no longer playing with them. Um, Todd, yeah, I mean, I can't remember dude's name. Bass player guy. I feel like it's still
Saba, I think, right?
no, it's not Saba.
Well, not Saba.
No, no,
Okay.
no. It's Saba's just doing a band right now called the Virgos,
Okay.
which is a sick doom band from like his area, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
No, they had this dude like older. Sorry if they get back to him. I'm not calling you old. Like you're probably not that much older than me, but like like seasoned 805 area guy.
Okay.
I don't know what else he was in. I've never actually met him. I will say he looks sick. Like when you like he like physically like looks really cool. but he pops up playing and stuff every so often. But I don't remember dude's name. And then the other person in Nails. Uh I'm not sure. I'm not sure who it's gonna
Yeah,
be, you know.
I'm curious. We'll
So
see.
we'll see.
They've got
Um
shows coming up too, so
I mean,
ready to find out.
I've been as a promoter, I have been contacted. So we'll see. But that and then in regards to kind of death metal, I am interested to see what the full Gate Creeper record sounds like. Um,
Yeah, that HM2 pop punk song was interesting.
so here's the thing. So there is an effect, and I say this with unbiased and just something I've noticed. When bands go to nuclear, they start doing that. Like think about the that last Fuming Mouth record.
Yeah.
Like that kind of had that too, you
Okay.
know?
You're right. Now that you put it that way, you're kind of right.
It's like weird. It's like a lot of bands, like not everybody, but
Yeah, I know
like
what you mean
when
though.
they go to Nuclear Blast, they get a little more like I don't know if there's somebody over there being like, "Hey man, like pump some melody in there," or whatever. I'm not sure, but I want to hear it all together because
Agreed.
it could be sick. I get it's probably going to push some people out, no doubt, but they're what 3 LPs deep, you
And
know.
they're huge. Like they've got such a following, and like you see in just the shirts that Chase wears, it's like he wears like at the gate shirts,
Mhm.
freaking in flame shirts. Like he likes melodic stuff,
For
so
sure.
that makes sense. Um, I personally like the song, and like it to me it was like, oh, that's different. I didn't expect that, so I like that aspect of it. Um, Whereas like, Caught in the Treads, the first single, it's very gate creeper, so it was cool
Yeah, I
to
like
see
that
that.
one more than the second one, but I don't
I
necessarily dislike
agree.
the second one. But I like Caught in the Treads. Um, but yeah, so I'm interested. Like my attention, I brought it up for a reason. It's like, oh, I've heard some singles that don't really sound like what you've normally been doing. So let's
I want to
see.
hear how that song fits in with the album,
That's what I'm
especially
saying.
because
Because dude,
the only intel I have on that album is from Kyle, and Kyle said that Eric told him that there's a lot of guitar solos on this
okay,
album,
then sick.
but
Let's hear it.
there hasn't been one of the singles yet, so I'm like,
You
okay,
know,
let's see.
maybe it's reserved for. I mean, but I get it for a single. Maybe people are like, I don't want to throw the solo on here because like for a single right now, people are. That's the thing is we're not back to solos yet. Is the
Yeah,
thing. So it's like maybe people are like, I don't want to lead with the solo heavy song because people aren't there yet. But I feel like we'll get back there. I get excited about solos now. There was definitely a time period where I was like kind of over it. Like in all genres. I was like, I just want to hear a cool riff. But now I'm like, no, but let's bring that back in there. So yeah, I think we'll have like an interesting back half of the year. This would be some
agreed.
cool stuff going on.
Um, I got two more questions.
Mhm.
One is not heavy music related, so we'll see where this goes. Um, I'm a weird dude, and I kind of like conspiracy theories. What's your favorite conspiracy theory?
It's a good
Like for
question.
reference, my favorite one right now is that I'm in the rabbit hole of UFOs in the ocean. I'm for it.
Interesting. Okay. I would say my favorite conspiracy theory is like there's one that just came to mind, but I'm not really 100% sure if it's my favorite. I'm sure after I think it was later, like I'll be wrong, but like I am interested in like the like Bohemian Grove stuff,
Okay,
and like things of like that nature, and be like, yo, what's really the deal? Is it nothing? Is it just kind of like a club, or is there actually like something deeper, like going on here? I'm interested in that. I would that's one of those things where I was like, I really wish I could just know what the deal is.
agreed. I went down that rabbit hole not long ago where
Mhm.
I listened to a podcast with the guys from Outer Heaven, and they were
Cool.
talking about that conspiracy in particular. And
Chill.
there's a building in Austin called the Owl Building. I don't know
Okay,
if
so
you're.
like Moloch style.
Yeah, so this building, it's like a. I wish I knew the name of the building, but it's a big building in Austin, and if you look at it, it looks like an owl.
Okay.
And then here's where it gets a little crazy, is that it's 33 stories, which is like I guess the highest level of masonry. So it's like, huh,
Oh,
what's going on there?
yeah. Okay. See, yeah, it's like stuff like that. It's like, what's the deal? I want to
Like,
know.
is that coincidental, or is like
That's kind
what?
of where I arrive at, where I'm like, is this just like somebody was like, oh, these like politicians get together and obviously like crazy stuff's going on, or is it just the equivalent of like drunk dudes at a country club? Like I like you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, what's the deal? So it's like I'm curious about that.
Yeah. And then the like conspiracy behind that building is that like apparently it gets struck by lightning and they collect energy from it. That's like where it
Oh,
got a little
okay.
conspiracy, little that's where the tinfoil hat came on a little bit more. But I'm with you. That's definitely a good one of like, are they just playing a bit, or is that for
Yeah.
real?
Is it the equivalent of just like a frat, or is it like there's actually like planning and ritual and stuff like that?
Yeah, because you could see it in the sense of like, of a band thing where like, what if we put this dumb sample right here in this part of the song? Like, wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah.
Like, is it that
And
energy?
then people start like reading into it, being like, "Yo, they're trying to tell you this," and it's like, maybe, like it's like that's the thing is like it's like something about conspiracy stuff is in my head. I'm like, what I would love to know is what level things are constructed. Like, to what level are things constructed, and to what level are like, is that just cope? You know,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, is there actually like an interconnected web of like movers and shakers behind the scenes, or is that easier for people to come up with to kind of like sort of make sense of like all the bullshit? You
Yeah.
know, I would love to know like what it is, because at the end of the day, some politician or whatever like that, they're not that much smarter than the average, like the average person. It's just like positioning that kind of got them where they are. So it's like the average person makes mistakes all the time. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, are people really able to like keep this veil up? Like, people can barely keep secrets. What do you mean? So I don't know. It's like I think about that kind of stuff on a regular basis.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that. My last question, this question I kind of have to, I guess, modify it at times because the question is, how does metal get you high? Obviously, you're an edgeman,
I
so
am.
I'm not trying to break that for you, but like,
Yeah, that's fine.
what
So
I mean by that is like, how does heavy music like make a big impact in your life? Like, what does it do for you that makes your life better, I guess, is another way I'd ask it.
it gives me like a real sense of purpose, because so much of what I do, away from obligatory things, is this. So it's like, I go to my job, every day, or 5 days a week rather. But like, it's like on the way to work, I'm listening to new records. I'm listening to new music, new things that drop. Like I want to dive in on that. It's like I do a podcast where I talk to people just like you do. Where I like learn about their lives, and kind of what got them to this point, what got them into what they're doing. It's like I play in a band, and multiple, making multiple bands. I played in bands ever since I was 14. And that's 2 decades later, and I'm still doing it. And then it's like, yeah, and like I'm a promoter. Like, it's like I set up shows, and I've done that on both ends of the country. And it's funny. It's like I try to I try to almost stay away in my head side, or I've tried in the past. Like, it's like I didn't want to make a new band, then I ended up making MAD. When I came to California, I was like, they've already got a thing going. They already got a thing going on here. I don't need to book shows here. And because I had history with it, the local promoters asked me to join up with them. And it's like, okay, look, a minute. It's like I can't really stay away. It is, in regards to getting high, it is like I'm like addicted to doing all this stuff. Um, and it's when everything goes just right. You put out a good song, you put on a good show, you do a good interview. It's a feeling you want to continue to chase, just like a high. So I would say that is how it works out for me.
Awesome. I really like that your response on that. Um, I think you guys just released an EP, Hexer.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, 3 songs. I've been spinning that. I really enjoy it. I think other people need to listen to it. Um, and just again, like, thank you for joining me, and thank you for like giving me inspiration, man. Where like, like I said, I look up to you in the fact where I'm like, this guy's got a kick-ass band. That's something that I'm building towards. Maybe not the kick-ass part, but the band part.
We'll get there.
Um,
It's one step
and
at a time.
then the podcast thing. It's like, I don't me not having necessarily a scene. I need to find a way where I could like talk to people who are different from me but have similar interests so that way I could draw some kind of inspiration
Yeah,
and
you learn
and
quite a lot.
and grow. I agree. It's like and the first thing I learned, like the first person that me and my pals talked to on doing this was Steve from 200 Stab Wounds, which is
Mm-hmm.
probably my favorite death metal band, and I was like just blown away to learn like all you gotta do is reach out and like Everyone's just normal dudes like me
That's
and you.
really it. Everybody's just some guy, just some girl, just some person. You know, it's just like you can. And the things that was beautiful about like I think this is really seated in hardcore, but it bleeds into metal too. Is that it's like you know we're all part of the same scene. You know,
Agreed.
and like people are like not really like above each other or anything like that. Like you can just reach out to somebody, and there's a good chance that they're just down to talk to you.
Agreed. Well, thank you, Ace, for joining me. Like I said, I really appreciate it. Um, it's been awesome to chat, and it's like kind of a weird thing where I'm like, holy shit, like I'm in my brain. It's like, man, I'm taking part of like form of passion because I was just listening to the Connor Jones episode a couple days ago, so it's like it's
Oh,
almost a trip for
hell
me.
yeah, beautiful. Well,
Well,
thank
thank
you,
you,
man.
man.
Thank you for having me. It's been really nice. Love doing this. What you're doing is great. And everybody, if you're listening to this episode because of me for whatever reason, listen to all the rest of the episodes and you know have a good time.
I appreciate it.